China and End-Time Prophecy, How God is Using the Red Dragon to Fulfill His Ultimate Purposes. Chapter 2, China's Underground House Church. Before we dive into Old Testament, we need to understand the nature of the church in China. There are many elements regarding China's church as a whole that are controversial. They are controversial because so little data about Christians in that nation is openly available, and people have differing opinions about what is occurring there, but two aspects are generally agreed upon. First, China has been experiencing the world's largest revival. Second, the underground house church makes up the bulk of new believers. There are few who would debate these two facts about China's Christian growth. However, many people don't really understand what the underground house church is, so it may be helpful to define it and explain how it is different from the official Chinese church. The underground house church in China is sometimes simply called the House of Church of China. It refers to a body of Christian believers who have chosen not to associate with the official Chinese church, the Three Self-Patriotic Movement Church, or Three Self Church. This official church began in 1954 after Mao Zedong and the Communists came to power in 1949. The Three Self Churches represent the philosophy of the Chinese Communist Party, or self-administration, self-support, and self-evangelism. Second, the official Church of China has rules that oppose the essential teachings of the Bible. According to China News and Church Reports, 7 very strict rules must be followed in Three Self Churches. 1. Christian believers must fervently love the People's Republic of China, and support the leadership of the Chinese Communist Party and the People's Government. Uphold the unification of the motherland and harmony among ethnic groups, and work steadfastly on the road of socialism. 2. Christian believers must strictly abide by all the laws, regulations, and policies of the Communist Party and the state, and strive to be patriotic and law-abiding citizens. 3. Christian believers must actively work to increase material wealth and cultivate the spiritual morals of the socialist civilization. They must comply with the government's labor codes and strive to contribute to the development of the 4 modernizations established by the Communist Party. When scheduled religious activities are in conflict with production and work schedules, the economic activist must take priority. 4. A permit must be obtained from the country's state administration for religious affairs in order to establish religious meeting points. No authorization meeting points are allowed. 5. Christian believers must actively cooperate with the government to thoroughly carry out the party's religious policies to the letter. They shall not persuade or force others to believe in Christianity. They shall not brainwash teenagers under 18 with religious beliefs. They shall not bring children under 18 to religious activities. 6. One should see a doctor for medication when sick. Christian believers must not resort to prayer alone for healing so as not to endanger people's health and lives. 7. Christian believers shall not preach their religion outside the church building and specific places that have been designated for religious activities. They shall not preach itinerantly. They shall not receive self-proclaimed evangelists into their homes, churches, or meeting point. In addition to these 7 rules, there are codes that are enforced but not necessarily written in legislation, which is a common practice in China. These codes prohibit evangelism, children's ministry, preaching by visiting preachers, unauthorized baptism, unauthorized independent Bible training, multinational cooperation, printing teaching materials, handling out Bibles, and teaching about the virgin birth, the resurrection, and the second coming. There are Christians in China who feel strongly that they cannot follow the teachings of the government and teachings of the Bible at the same time, so they are forced to practice their religion illegally. Again, the group of believers who practice their religion illegally are called the Underground House Church in China, or simply the House Church. Most of the information provided to this book originates from this illegal group in China. China and End-Time Prophecy, How God is Using the Red Dragon to Fulfill His Ultimate Purposes. Part 3, Revival in China. Regarding the research on China and the Underground House Church, although this information do not claim to be expert on China, I have been working and living in China for more than 20 years and have written more on the subject of the Underground Church than almost any other historian of China. I have had the unique opportunity to spend more than 2 decades talking beside and learning from the most influential underground house church pastors who lead churches of tens of thousands of believers. There are recorded stories and personal biographies of a number of these pastors. many of which can be found in the Book of Underground Church. For that book I interviewed for the very first time several leaders who were previously unknown to those outside China. In my book I Stand with Christ and Kidnapped by a Cult, I wrote the biographies of two of the most well-known underground house church pastors who, together, arguably oversee more than 20 million believers. I have spent most of my life serving with Chinese missionaries who have been sent out by their churches in China to places like North Korea, Sudan, Iran, Iraq, Cambodia, Vietnam, and Indonesia, and I have written books, articles, and reports documenting their work. In most of these instances, I have had exclusive access. Since 1999, I have worked intimately with Brother Yun, also known as Heavenly Man, one of the most well-known underground house church leaders in the world, and one of the main spokesmen for the Back to Jerusalem vision. I have spent hours interviewing Brother Yun and documenting his views, his experiences, and his family life story. The situation has been made even more challenging because now the top pastors in China refuse to give numbers regarding their members. They have stopped calculating the sizes of their churches because of the discord they have seen that it causes in the West. Fangcheng Fellowship and China Gospel Fellowship, for instance, are considered to be two of the largest underground house church networks in China, with an estimated 20 million believers between the two of them, but both of their pastors have stopped providing information about their fellowships because they have seen Western missions leaders fight each other over the accuracy of the data and which numbers are correct. But it is still important to acknowledge the tremendous growth we are seeing as a result of the revival China is experiencing and to try to get a good sense of the numbers. Let's start by looking at the most basic information. In 1934 there were roughly 700,000 Christians in China. In many ways, this is the last official number of Christians inside China. However, the number of Christians reportedly grew to between 10 to 14 million believers by 1997. This means that during hardest 48 years in Chinese history, in which there are great persecution. A comprehensive study in 2011 by the Pew Forum on Religion and Public Life showed that number of Christian in China including Catholic believers had increased to more than 67 million. According to research by Fenggong Yang of the Center on Religion and Chinese Society at Purdue University, the number of Chinese Christians continues to rise and in 2018, estimated there were as many 115 million Protestant believers. This would mean that in the last 8 years, China has been an average increase of more than 16,600 people coming to Christ every 24 hours. Yang estimates that more Protestant Christians will live in China in 2030 than any other country in the world. All of these numbers are likely very conservative. One Western leader stated there could be as many as 130 million believers in China. Based on the research and observations of my own organization, Back to Jerusalem, I estimate the number of believers in China today to be more than 150 million. Regardless of the specific numbers, the argument can be convincingly established that China is experiencing a massive revival and has been for the last 4 decades, and that this revival could be an indicator, one of many other indicators pointing to the second coming of Christ.